All right, so Pupa, Pupa, as the intro song goes. This is Knowles of Thrifty Gaming, and I'm here with Kevin Street of Kevin Street. That's his
Yeah,
channel
how's it
name.
going?
Hey, so this anime, this anime. So you, like me, you do a lot of video game and anime review stuff, and so I decided you would be a good fit to be my partner in crime, or my partner on this Homer's Odyssey, whatever you want to call it, where we talk about this anime. So before I get a little into the background of why this video happened and why I am responsible for this, can you tell me your initial reactions when you watched this?
My initial reaction was, what the hell did I just watch?
Okay, fair enough.
I have so many questions, particularly on the ending. And I mean, should I just start with like the beginning with Yumi and like
Well,
she turns into like a
first let me tell you why. First, let me tell you why I decided to have this shindig and why
okay.
I invited you to watch the show too, and review it with me, basically. So, a long time ago, I think it might actually have been the year this show came out, like 2014. The show came out in 2014. I was just bored out of my mind, and I was browsing my anime list for
Oh,
like the
a great
lowest,
sight.
yeah, for the lowest rated stuff they had on there. It's just one of those things, sometimes you do random things when you're bored. And I was browsing my anime list for the lowest rated stuff, not the highest rated, not the stuff they liked, but the stuff that people hated. And
Yeah, maybe you'll find a hidden gem there, right?
for some reason, well, I just thought, I was looking for things that were entertainingly bad. But a lot of them, they barely resembled shows. They were just like these CGI vomit things that kind of resembled, if you want to imagine it, like, those videos for babies that are on YouTube, like the anime equivalent of that. A lot
Oh
of
yeah.
really low rated stuff. But I remember seeing Pupa on there, and something about it always stuck with me. It's rated 3.33 on my anime list.
Isn't 33 like some kind of Illuminati number too?
Is it?
I think
666 is,
so.
but I don't know about 333. But if it is, that's pretty hilarious. Well, for anyone who doesn't know, my anime list rates out of 10, and anything below a 5 is considered bad. Anything below a 4 is considered terrible. So this is just on the lower end, just on the end of being terrible. And yeah, it was a funny thing. So I found it, and it caught my attention because, one, it was a horror anime, and I didn't see any that far down the list other horror animes. And I kind of have an interest in horror animes too. I kind of like my anime with a little bit of darkness. So, and it looked and sounded more like an actual show than the other stuff that was rated so low. But there were a lot of reviews, and they say like somebody compared it to the Human Centipede if it were cut to be rated PG-13. Somebody said it was, there were a lot of this is disgusting, like pure shock value. So there was a lot of it getting trashed. Something about that always stuck with me for some reason. I didn't watch the show back then, but just a couple weeks ago, I was. Oh, and by the way, I should also add my anime list. It's one of those places that where there's anime reviews where people aren't known for their like high taste. So if they hate you on my anime list, it's not a great sign. If they hate your show, but anyway, but I never watched it at the time. And then a couple of weeks ago, I was kind of bored. I had some free time, and I was browsing like a totally legitimate anime streaming service, very legit. Anyway, so I was browsing at some anime streaming, and I decided to browse the horror section because a lot of times when I'm not looking for anything in particular, I'll look at horror or mystery or one of those because those are kind of the genres that are my jam. And I saw Pupa there, and I was like, oh, it's that anime everyone hates. And
I remember this one.
And I decided to finally sit down and watch it. And the big question I had, which is the big question I want us to answer in this review, is Is Pupa overhated, or does it deserve the hate it gets? So yeah, so now now that I've given you all that, let me tell everyone else. So I'm going into this as someone who has done a little bit of research on Pupa. I have not read the whole manga, but I've read bits and pieces of it, and I've read summaries.
How
I have a
long
better
is the manga?
understanding
Do you know
of,
how long the manga is?
huh?
How long is the manga? Do you know?
It's
Is it like a
only
long
five.
series or
It's only 5 volumes, so
5 volumes? Okay.
yeah. So it's not like insanely long, but it's definitely too long for the show. That's another thing that people should understand is this show is only each episode. It's 12 episodes, but each episode is only 4 minutes long. So you'd say, oh well, it's a 48-minute show. And one of the reviewers who trashed it said it was 48 minutes of the sister eating the brother. We'll get into that. But actually, there's a 30-second intro and ending to each episode. So really, it's only a 36-minute show. Very short.
Yes.
So anyway, yeah. So now
I've never seen anything like that too, with like an anime series like that. You know, that short an episode.
There are other
maybe
shows. There are other shows that are this short, but they're usually based on like 4-panel gag strips. They're usually just little comedy things, which Pupa is not, definitely.
No.
But yeah, so Kevin, you're coming at this from the more outsider perspective, where you
Completely
know
blind. Yes.
you know a lot less about the show. So yeah,
I
let's walk
knew
through
nothing
it.
about it until I watched it, and I still don't really know. I mean, I know it's a manga. I know, horror and all that shit, and how it was panned by everybody. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's the worst thing ever."
Yeah. So you know that everyone hated it. You know it's
Like, was this on television at all? Like, or just somehow made it onto Blu-rays, DVDs on the internet?
I believe it did air when it first came out.
I can't imagine it was ever like in America though. No.
No, it aired in Japan, I believe.
Yeah, imagine this come. Well, actually, I kind of can. I can imagine this coming on like
Probably
Adult Swim or something.
which probably explains the weird censorship, which we're gonna get to a little later. But yeah, you were about ready to go through this thing before I kind of gave that intro. So let's start with what?
Yeah, sorry about that. I kind of said some stuff about the plot, but
All right.
oh well.
So Pupa. So let's start, Kevin. What were you gonna say about starting with episode 1?
So basically, it follows the brother and sister, Yumi and Oni-chan. Well, she called him Oni-chan. I guess he had a different name, a real name or whatever. But that was a
just
nickname.
means like, big brother in Japanese. His real name is Urutsu. I don't know if I'm saying that even right, Urutsu, but yeah.
Yeah, and so like it starts with them in school or whatever, right? And then they leave, and she finds her way to these red butterflies. Yumi does, and
those butterflies
like
those butterflies CGI, by the way. I don't know if you noticed.
Oh yeah, and like she finds her way into the woods and finds this other woman named Maria, I believe, who has like a witch hat on,
so they
and is like, "Oh,
in the show,
stay away from the red butterflies." Sorry,
I totally missed where they said her name in the show, and I just called her Witchy Woman until I looked it up and saw that her name was Maria.
Yeah, she has like a normal like American name.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it's like there's this scene where she turns into like this demon devil thing, starts eating like beings and people, animals and stuff, and I don't know, like she turns into this demon creature for the one episode and then turns back to normal, which I didn't quite understand that. But apparently she's infected with this virus and has to consume flesh to survive, to satisfy her cravings. And her brother also is infected with this virus, but he doesn't necessarily turn into like a monster, but he can regenerate his body and his wounds. And so the premise of the show is that Yumi is feasting upon her brother throughout the whole episode with like, these weird sexual innuendos where she's like almost moaning as she's eating him.
Yeah. Oh God.
And it's like, oh my God, dude, what the hell is going on?
That is what you're describing is mainly episode 6. So I should say one thing. I guess this is sort of in defense of the show. Like somebody said that like the whole thing is nothing but this sort of eating with this subtext, the incest subtext. Most of the show is actually not that. Now,
No, there's just that one scene, and she's like, she's like lying on top of him, and if I remember right, her shirt, she has like the strap from her shoulder coming down to almost be in like a sexy pose, eating him, and it's like, oh my god. But it is just that one episode. You're right about that.
That's not till episode 6. So let me kind of go back to the first 4 episodes, because I would actually argue that if there is a decent part of this show, it's the first 4 episodes.
Okay.
These are the episodes that just kind of introduce the general premise of the show. And I would argue that for 3-minute episodes, they're actually paced pretty well. And they do is about as decent a job, I think, as you could expect of them kind of explaining enough that you can mostly understand what's going on.
Yeah, I feel like this series probably would have got received better if there were 22-minute episodes or whatever a standard episode is, and they could explain more.
Yeah, so this is another interesting, like what happened with the budget of this show? I tried to find out and I couldn't find anything clear. But here's what I do know. So this was made by a studio called Studio Dean, which is actually a fairly prolific producer of anime shows.
Yeah, I've heard of them before.
I know of them as the studio that made Higurashi no Naku Koro ni, the original Higurashi series. But they've done other fairly well-known stuff like Log Horizon and I don't know what else. They're fairly prolific. They made quite a few things. They make some shows people like, but they're also not the most well-liked studio. They're definitely not the most high-budget studio. In fact, they are known for sometimes cranking out animation that is a bit ugly, and they get some hate for that. But this show in particular, something must have happened where they were budgeting this show from like money they pulled from their couch cushions. This show seems like, even for the 36 minutes of animation that it has, it seems like they were kind of being cheap about the animation. And they actually do a decent job of it, again, in that first 4 episodes, which I would say is the best part of the show.
Yes.
There are some recycled shots, but you wouldn't really notice them unless you're like me and kind of look for these things because you're kind of interested in how things are produced. Like I said, the butterflies are CGI, but they actually don't look terrible. They kind of fit in with the world. And the background scenes have that kind of, it looks like they're hand drawn with like colored pencils or something, right?
Yeah.
It's actually kind of an interesting look, and it looks kind of almost dreamlike, but like a little disturbing. So there's kind of an interesting aesthetic going on there. But yeah, so when Studio Dean originally introduced this show, they did not advertise that it was only going to be, that it were going to be very short episodes, 4-minute episodes. They kind of advertised it like it was going to be a full show, a real show with like 22-minute episodes. So they introduced it, and it took like a couple years or a few years where it just kind of dropped off the map. And there was no more news about it. And so people just kind of forgot about it. And then they announced that they were making it again. And then like stuff started coming out that it was, each episode was only going to be 5 minutes or something. And so then people kind of started getting worried. But yeah, they must have like lost the budget for this thing or something. That's the only thing I can figure. Because it looks like it was made, on a definitely like a shoestring budget. And the intros, the intro and outro too, the opening, the EP, OP and ED, as they say.
Yeah.
Anime. So they're each 30 seconds long, which, being shorter is kind of to be expected when each episode is only 3 minutes. And I would say the soundtrack to this show is decent. Some people have bagged on it. Some people have praised it. I would say it's perfectly decent for a horror anime. It's one of the few things about the show that's fine. But the animation for like the beginning, it's not animation. For the opening, all it is scrolling artwork, which I'm pretty sure was promo art for the manga, I think.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that, but all it is still images scrolling up, which I could make like better than that in iMovie and what I used to make videos. Make YouTube videos. Like I could make better quote unquote animation than that for an OP for something. So it just scrolls up until it gets to the title. And yeah, that's like, and then the ending, the ED, that's got what, like Yumi in her nightgown. You were mentioning like the strap being off the shoulder or whatever. That's in the ending too. But it's just still images of her. And then like they did like blood over her, and then they're like turning the transparent layer of the blood on and off. Like doing that. I mean, it's slightly more effort because they're like scrolling over and they've got the background stuff when they do it, but still, like both the opening, the OP and the ED are basically not animated. So again, that seems to me like a cost.
Yeah, your theory about the budget definitely makes a whole lot of sense there. Like where did it go? And
that seems like a cost
maybe they were trying to make the 22-minute episodes and then the budget just didn't happen. So they had like scenes from each episode and put them together in the 3-4 minute episodes. And that's what they did.
I would love to know what happened with that budget, because it really seems like they were expecting to have it and then they just didn't. I don't know if it went to other shows or what, but I couldn't find any source where they made like a public statement about that. I don't think Studio Dean wants to talk about this show too much.
Probably not. I'm looking at Studio Dean's Wikipedia page to see like what other stuff they've done. I mean, they've done Rurouni Kenshin, Ranma Half, Fate Stay Night.
They're a pretty prolific studio.
So they've done like decent stuff, Yeah,
they've put out shows that are well known and well liked. So it's not like this was some no-name studio where they were just barely formed and nobody knew what the heck they were doing. Like I said, it just seems like this show lost its budget like almost entirely, and then they were told to make it anyway. But anyway,
here's what we got.
Episodes 1 through 4. So basically what happens is, the girl goes into the park. She sees the butterflies. She sees the weird lady. And then she sees the dog, which like explodes in guts, which is not really explained. But then when her brother goes to get her, that's when she like transforms. And you don't see too much of the transformation or the aftermath. It's kind of shot around. And then, her brother kind of confronts her and gets quote unquote killed. And then like the lady, the weird lady, Maria kind of explains to them what's going on, but not very much. And so then they kind of have to deal with that. And that's like the intro of those first 4 episodes.
Yeah, and there's also like flashback scenes too of, I guess, their parents and the abusive father.
Yeah, where it's revealed that they have an abusive father. Yeah. Which kind of is tying into the themes, I think, of the show. That's another thing. Somebody said that this show is nothing but shock value, and I would firmly disagree with that. This show is definitely trying to say a lot with its themes.
Yeah, because Oni-chan's like, I'm here to protect you. Like he says that quite a few times throughout the whole show.
Yeah, there's a lot of themes and subtext in this show. So I would disagree that it's pure shock value, although some of the stuff is definitely going into shock value. So I would say the first 4 episodes kind of work. I actually think they're pretty well paced in terms of they explain enough that you can follow mostly what's going on. There's kind of a sense of mystery too. You're wondering what the heck.
What the heck just happened?
Is it going to work? And they do a pretty good job of having suspenseful endings. Like the ending of episode 2, the bite. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
The bite, like that was like an obvious jump scare where like I called it before it was going to happen, but the way it happened, it kind of got me. So I was like, whoa, I didn't expect it to be that bad. So I think a lot of things about episodes 1 through 4 work, but then came episode 5 in my watching experience, and I was just like, what? Because it just completely changes everything, and it does a very poor job explaining it. And then came episode 6, which is the eating episode. And I was just...
And dude, the sound effects too, like the crunching and like the sound of the blood gushing. I gotta admit, the sound effects were pretty good.
The sound design in this is decent. I would argue that the sound, like the music and the sound, is something that is fine. about the show. But yeah, a lot of other things are not decent. But when I was having flashbacks to, you ever watch Red Letter Media?
Yeah, I've seen them in like their Star Wars stuff. Nothing beyond that though.
Okay. Well, they did a little video where they talk about the movie Freddy Got Fingered, which is this extreme like shock comedy. And they talk about this moment where one of the guys talks about seeing it in a theater, and he talks about this moment where the audience just turned on it and involved this little kid getting like violently injured. But he talks about how the audience saw this scene and they just kind of turned on the movie and were just mad at it. Like, I know that this was my feeling, and I bet this was a lot of people's feeling when they were watching Pupa, that episode 6 was when they just, the people who weren't already mad at it, the episode 6 was when they just turned on it. They're like, okay, what the heck are you doing? And even if you can set aside, that a lot of people are just going to find this weird and gross, like not a lot of people are into, lolly incest vor guru, but it's also badly animated. So if you are into that sort of thing, then this scene will probably disappoint you as much as your parents are disappointed in you. So on top of that, not many people being into it, this show is 36 minutes long, as I've said before. This episode,
so get to that point, you kind of have to finish it, right?
This episode is a complete waste of time. They just wasted 3 minutes showing something that we already knew was happening, because this was already introduced and shown in other episodes, much more briefly and a little more tastefully. So it's just a complete waste of time. They just wasted 3 minutes of a 36-minute episode. That's almost like a tenth of the runtime, showing something they didn't need to show. So. And it was after episode 5, which introduced a bunch of questions. So what do you think of episode 5? That's the baby episode, the demon baby episode.
Maria, right? The witch lady wanted to basically have the two of them create a kid.
That's the next, that's like episode 7. Episode 5 is the one where it's revealed Yumi's mom, or their mom. They have their mom, and it's revealed that oh no, this was not because she was exposed to the butterfly.
Yeah, so Yumi's always sort of had this problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that begs the question: what's the point of these red butterflies? Then I thought that was sort of like how they explained how she, had this flesh-eating virus or whatever. That's how they explained at the beginning, anyway. Well, but yeah, apparently she was always like a flesh-eating child.
It's a misdirect, but the thing is, it's so badly handled. This is where learning about the manga, like, you realize, oh, okay, this is how the show was supposed to be, and you see how it was mishandled. The reveal that Yumi was always a monster and that she was not just infected one day and that these butterflies aren't related to it, that is like the big twist of the manga.
Yeah, it definitely came out of left field.
Yeah, it's not like it just. So
like in the manga, do they have more of the flashback scenes then, I would imagine, right?
Yes, it's built up to more. Basically, it's introduced to the characters, to the two protagonists, by another character who comes in as like part of the, he's like going to be one of their. He's like part of the climax, and this is a character that's not in the show at all.
Oh wow.
So in this show, this episode happens, and it's not even like anyone is telling them this or anything. It's just something it's just like a random flashback that neither of them know about. So it's just like, okay, what? And it's dropped in right in the middle. So it just kind of loses, it's not built up to properly or anything. And it just kind of loses its impact. And of course, it's never explained either, like that was what kept me watching, is like, I wanted episode 5 to be explained, and like, okay, why was she always a monster? What the heck? Because before that, when you think it's that they just randomly got infected, the show is still kind of making sense. Like, you can kind of follow it. But then when it's like, no, actually not, like, you're like, okay, what the heck? And then you're just waiting for this answer that never comes. But yeah, in the manga, it sounds like it works a lot better, because that is like the big M. Night Shyamalan. That's like the big plot twist of the manga. It's like, no, you were not just randomly infected one day. She was always a monster. And so she's also the reason that the brother is the way he is. So
yeah, he has like a scar on his face too. They don't really explain that.
Yeah, which is okay. It's weird that they don't even attempt to explain that, because in the manga, it first explains that, and this is a false explanation, by the way. This is part of like the big plot twist. There's a big plot twist at the end. But it first explains that is, his abusive father gave it to him, which they could have worked into the anime with one line, and then people would stop wondering about it, right? But they never do. Instead, he's just got a scar on his face, and they never explain it. But basically, so in the manga, at first he explains it as, like my dad did that to me, my abusive dad, but then later, when this reveal comes out, it turns out that she actually did that to him when they were babies.
Oh, wow.
And like he just suppressed the memory, and they both just kind of forgot about how it really happened. So yeah. So do you want me to explain the truth, the horrible truth about Pupa, or do we want to go through the rest of the episodes first?
Well, yeah, I mean, we can talk about the they had that scene with the witch lady where she wanted to like have a kid between the two of them, right?
Which is another thing that never goes anywhere in the anime.
Yeah,
didn't have room
for her experiments or whatever.
So this is the part,
and then there's a scene too when she like takes off her robe or whatever, and you see she's pregnant.
Yes, and yet so she's gonna it sets up. It spends a whole episode setting up how she is like. So first of all, it establishes that she got like their sperm and egg, the brother's sperm and the sister's egg, and she implanted it in herself to make a monster baby. And it doesn't explain how she got that, first of all. And then nothing happens from that, even though it's like a very concerning and very weird and gross. So yeah, that like this is another reason the anime just falls apart, is that they tried to work in like everything about the manga, and they failed miserably
in such a limited amount of time too.
Yeah,
like if it's only gonna be like 38 minutes, pick and choose what you're gonna use, right?
They should never have tried to work in as many plot points as they did from the manga to the anime. They should have realized, knowing they only had 36 minutes of showtime, they should have been like, okay, we're just gonna do like just a short beginning part and maybe just kind of end on a cliffhanger. And then, you can check out the manga if you want to read more, or maybe we'll get a second season, which considering there's like still unresolved cliffhanger things. It's like, did they think they were going to get a second season?
Did the manga like complete its story?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
The manga completed its story. There's still, let's be clear, there's still things about the manga that sound like problems or not the greatest things, but it had a complete story that's like functional. That's the biggest thing it has over the anime. So I'll just explain.
And there were also scenes too where they showed like her teddy bear.
Yeah, I actually like the teddy bear stuff. So yeah,
and like the stuffing's coming out or whatever. And then like the last episode, that's all it was, like trying to win a new teddy bear at the fair or whatever. And Oni-chan had to use everyone's tickets.
We'll get to the final episode in a minute too, because that one is a very weird choice. Having that as the final episode,
weird way to end it.
Weird choice. But yeah, so I might as well, I guess, just tell you, since we're talking about episode 5 and how it totally mishandles the series' big plot twist in a way that just leaves you confused instead of feeling like it's shocking. So basically, yeah, towards the end of the manga, it reveals that, she was a monster all along. She's actually the one who gave her brother her scar. So basically, in the manga, what's revealed is that their mom, after she gave birth to Urutsu and was still in the hospital, so there were these two ancient like grub monsters. This is a thing, and it's actually central to the plot of Pupa. And one of them went and impregnated itself into their mom, Urutsu's mom. I don't know how that works. Don't want to think too much about it, frankly. But this grub monster was apparently actually Yumi. So Yumi was like always this monster. She went and impregnated herself into Urutsu's mom, and she then like took their mom's DNA and made like a human suit from it.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So she made this human form, and so this is why in episode 5, and this is one of the other things about that episode that doesn't work without an explanation, because their mom is like freaking out at the very beginning about, this thing inside me is a demon and whatever, and it doesn't ever explain why. Like her whole reason for thinking that Yumi is like some kind of monster is that she was born with all her teeth, and sometimes she gives creepy looks, which then when she tries to kill the baby comes across as like, whoa, that's a bit extreme. She just comes across as kind of like nuts in episode 5, I thought at least. Did you kind of get that vibe at all?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like, so it's because it doesn't explain why she thinks this and stuff. So in the manga, she actually tries to like kill Yumi in the womb. She tries to abort the baby, which doesn't work because Yumi can heal.
Oh, wow.
That's why she fails to get rid of her and has to end up giving birth to her. So then she gives birth to this baby girl. So Yumi now, because I guess because of this process of like giving herself this human suit, something about it like erased all her memories, gave her amnesia. She doesn't remember her previous life as a monster. That said, she also is like still a monster on the inside, so she doesn't really know how to be human, and that's something she has to learn. So she's like a freaky demon baby when she's little, but eventually she grows out of it and becomes more normal. That's why she gave her brother the scar and stuff. But that's also why she just acts normal in the actual episodes at the start that we see, because she's basically learned how to be human, and she doesn't remember what she used to be, so she's acting normal. Yeah, and then like when she grew, I guess when she grew to a certain age, monster puberty or whatever, that's when she started having the problems and transforming and having to eat flesh and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I said, monster puberty or whatever. And the whole like transformation thing is kind of very poorly explained too in the anime. But basically, it goes like she transforms into the monster, but then she turns back into the human, and like it goes into recession. And in the manga, Maria, the woman, she actually gives the two of them pills. She gives them medicine for her, for Yumi to quote treat her condition. And then in exchange, they agree to let her examine them and like experiment on them. That's where she gets the sperm and egg that she implants in herself. So that's all explained in the manga. So that's like the big explanation of things that you don't get in the show that makes it really confusing. So there's still like a lot of gross, weird stuff, but it's explained a lot better. Yeah, so there's that. And then so let's kind of move on. So you have the episode, the eating episode, which is completely pointless. Now in the manga, it seems like
it's just there for shock value and for you to be like, oh my God, what is going on?
Yes. And in the manga, there is, I guess, some of that too. And it's pretty weird in the manga too, honestly. Like they make it, like I saw one page of this and they make it like cutesy, which is kind of like, creepy.
Yeah, because in the anime, she's like making these moaning sounds, you know?
Yeah, they don't
like,
quite do that. And at least not in the part of it I read, they don't quite do that, but they make it like this cutesy thing, which is like weird. And they do the same thing, which is also in the anime, where it's like, oh no, he's getting into it, which is that's at the end of the anime. But yeah, so they do that in the manga too. But like I said, a 36-minute anime, you do not have the time to be wasting on this when it's already been established. You know, we've already seen her eating him. We already know this is going on. So it's you don't have the time to waste on this when you think of all the other things they did not explain. It's the weird, jerky way the plot moves around after this. But after that, we have the episode with Maria where it explains that she impregnated herself with their baby, which never amounts to anything in the anime. I think in the manga, okay, again, this is where I didn't read the manga, so I have some gaps in my knowledge. I think that they actually like kill her or she dies or something. She has to be like stopped from doing
Yeah, I don't
that.
think we see her at all again in the anime after that scene. Yeah. I think she's gone.
Yeah. Maybe it's some kind of cliffhanger. She's like a secondary antagonist in the manga at some point. So, but yeah, she just disappears after that, which is like, why did you even introduce that plot thread if she's just going to disappear? And it also does some like weird thing with her manservant and their backstory, which is more developed in the manga, but it's still like kind of weird and like, what's the point even? Her manservant like is the one who gave her the scars. But then he agrees to be her servant forever. I don't know. And her backstory is revealed I guess they revealed it a little bit in the anime too, but her backstory is basically just that she was always a psychopath who was interested in
Like sort of
science,
experiments and stuff.
mad science and experiments. Like she's not in the manga or the anime. She is not a deep character. She's a pretty flat character. So yeah, I do like her visual design. I will say that. Like when I first saw her in the first episode, I was like, ooh, this character looks very mysterious and has a very memorable visual design. So visually, I like her design. But as far as what her character is, she's very flat. And she's basically just there as kind of a deus ex machina to every time the plot needs to be moved along. She can basically do anything because her whole personality is that she's a mad scientist with no morals and she does things for the lulz. So she's not like a deep character. But then after her episode, which like, why did they even keep focusing on her if since they never do anything with her? After her episode, they do the whole little mini arc. This is where it starts to kind of resemble a show again because there's a plot happening that's explained a little and somewhat connected to each other. They do the whole mini arc where they get abducted, right?
Yes.
So how well did you follow that?
Oh, it was crazy, man. Well, let me think for a minute. What came first? Because there was also the scene where there was this guy, I think he was a classmate of them, and he started beating Oni-chan.
Yeah, that's again like,
did that come after?
The anime doesn't explain anything. I did not assume he was a classmate. That's what you got out of it. I assumed he was working for the scientist people that they end up captured by after he gets his comeuppance. After.
Oh yeah, could be.
That's what I.
But yeah, he's basically like, I want to see the extent of the virus's healing properties, and he just starts beating the shit out of Oni-chan.
Yeah, like stabbing him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, okay, then, so this is the best part to talk about, like the weird censorship, because they like censor the knife in that guy's hand. Did you watch the censored or uncensored version?
I watched whatever was on YouTube.
I've heard that there was an uncensored version. I wasn't able to really find it, and I don't really care that much to see it because the show is kind of weird and gross. But
yeah, to be honest, I didn't really notice because I wasn't really paying attention to any censorship stuff because there's blood and guts flying everywhere. So did they really censor a knife? I didn't even really notice that.
Yeah, when he comes up to them, there's like this huge lens flare across like half the screen covering the knife in his hand. So you can't even see what he's threatening them with. But then later you can see the knife fine. And you can see him stabbing with it fine. So it's just like, what the heck is up with the censorship? It just makes no sense. Yeah, but beyond the weird censorship, that was just like a case of the main characters being idiots to me, because I was like, okay, so this guy comes up with you and he waves a knife in your face and tells you to come with him, and you go with him to an abandoned warehouse, and like,
yeah, what do you think's gonna happen?
Like, well, it's like, you can heal, both of you can heal, even if he does stab.
Yeah, fight back,
just run away. If he shanks you, you can heal, or just attack him. Like, all he's got is a knife. He doesn't even have a gun or anything, really bad. Like, I do not understand why they went with him to that warehouse. And yeah, of course, yeah. Then like he starts. What did he do? He like ties up Yumi, the girl. He ties up the girl, and he starts stabbing the guy repeatedly. And he says he wants to test his healing powers, but he's clearly just like being a sadist, and
yep. And he like has a sister watching, like, oh yeah, watch him suffer.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, the show is full of that. There's like the pointless people being pointlessly like doing sick stuff for pointless reasons. So there is definitely some shock value in the show. I defended it earlier for like, well, there's themes and subtext, and there are reasons for a lot of the things, but there's definitely just shock value too. So yeah, it's just a case where all the characters are being stupid, and then the brother, the brother, like after stabbing him, what does she do? The sister tries to stop him, so he like hits her or something, and then the brother just stands up and like pokes his eyes out.
Yeah, that's what finally makes him snap.
Yeah, which that thing was like, wait a minute, you could always like take him in a fight. Why did the frick were you just letting him stab you?
Yeah, why are you just standing down the whole time?
And this is another like big failure of the anime versus the manga, because the manga, so the both main characters in the anime are pretty shallow. I mean, they don't really have time to get any development. But in the manga, it's this big kind of established thing that the older brother actually has like when he snaps, he has a very violent temper, and he's actually afraid of like becoming their dad, their abusive dad, because of that. So
okay, that makes sense to keep showing those flashback scenes.
Yeah, so this sort of thing would have been a lot more foreshadowed in the manga. But yeah, here in the anime, he's just like suddenly like, I can fight now, and he just like easily dispatches the guy who is torturing him. And it just comes out of nowhere. So and then of course, then the scientist people come and capture them. And
yeah, that whole thing was crazy too. I guess it wasn't the scientist, but like the armed guards that the scientists had, that the whole standoff there where, Yumi is like eating them all essentially.
Yeah, so then what happens? They're taken back, they're taken to whatever, the science lab. So the whole reason I was able to figure out who these people were and what they were doing is just because of a line that I think it was Maria or whoever threw out. And I think she said this to the brother. I'm just going to call them the brother and the sister now.
Okay.
Just to the brother, like there's other people, there's other scientists that want to study them or whatever. There's another company, something, just some throwaway line. So this is presumably the other company. So they're taken by them, and then they start like dissecting him on the table, right?
Yeah.
And he's screaming and stuff, and he has to make some illusion that they're like enjoying it, because everyone's got to be a sick sadist in this show, even though they say they're doing it for like to get medicinal cures to heal people, which would actually make sense and actually give some like amount of moral ambiguity to the whole thing, because even though it's horribly painful for him, like they're not really doing any permanent damage to him. He does just recover. But, we can't have any moral ambiguity. So they're just like, there's this line implying they're just sadists too. But yeah, so then the sister goes Super Saiyan, essentially. Weird bug Super Saiyan.
More or less.
Yeah, and busts him out. And then they go back to school, apparently.
Yeah, everything's back to normal. Let's go back to school. I mean, Lord knows how long they're away, right?
Except she's still eating him, and he likes it now, apparently.
Yeah, he's like, oh, whatever I have to do to keep my sister safe, right?
Yeah. And then, and that's basically where the show ends, because the last episode is the flashback episode.
That's a weird way to end it,
Yeah, which is very tonally jarring, because that's like the episode when it's like, oh, here's that point in their lives when they were normal. And he wins her the flower she wears in her hair at a prize show. Oh, and
yeah, I guess it sort of shows how he has bad luck too, in the sense that he uses all those different tickets to try and win the big teddy bear, and he still doesn't win. He gets the hairpin.
Yep. So they do tie in the teddy bear theme there, which, by the way, I like the creepy teddy bears theme. I think that if you're doing a show or something that involves like themes of child abuse, creepy teddy bears are a good aesthetic.
Yeah, it always helps.
So I do like the visual theme of that throughout. I actually like that. So that's another point in the show's favor. But yeah, this last episode is like, it's almost like something to like a chaser shot to wash down the rest of the show. It's like the rest of the show, there's so much unpleasant stuff. Here's just like a nice little feel-good episode where they're just being normal.
Yeah, don't have nightmares. Watch this last episode and be on your way.
And they have like, so apparently, so I was really confused by those friends that they introduced, where it's like, hey, there's these people, and it's like they're just their friends at school. And I was like,
where'd they come from?
I was like, is this like a cameo of someone from another show, or what the heck is this? Well, it turns out that in the manga, they do just have some normal friends who are just in there for them to have normal friends at certain points in the show, in the manga. And they don't really serve that much purpose other than that. And they just put them in the last episode too. So we don't see them in any other part of the show, which, I mean, there's not much time to put them in. But
so random.
Yeah. Just
in the manga, is it more straightforward? Like it shows what happened in their past first and then the current timeline, or is it back and forth constantly with flashbacks?
Not constantly back and forth. Well, again, I haven't read the whole thing. It starts basically where the anime starts. though, from what I've seen. Then it does have occasional flashback because it does not show. It's like how the anime starts with her walking through the park and then the transformation and everything, right?
Okay, yeah.
It starts there. Because like I said, the she was a demon baby all along thing is like a big plot twist. So obviously they don't start with that. That comes much later. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it mostly progresses just like, yeah, they have flashback scenes, but there's a lot more of it progressing like normal. It doesn't feel like it's weirdly jumping around jarringly because it's not, way too much plot packed into a 36 minutes of episode, 36 minutes of show. So the pacing would definitely be better in the manga. But yeah, gosh, yeah, this show, well, it is a hot mess. I will say that. Like I said, there are certain aspects of it that I think are redeemable or that I kind of like, but there's definitely a lot to not like. So what do you think? Is it overhated?
For what it is, yeah, I think it is. I mean, it definitely could be a lot better if it was, the 12 episodes, 22-minute episodes, and it explains a lot more. But for what it is, if you just want to watch someone to get freaked out for, 35, 40 minutes, it's definitely, it has its place.
It definitely it's fair share of freaky things.
Like just searching it on YouTube, though, like the first things that come up are like, first of all, the 12 episodes, review, rant, 5 reasons to avoid it, and that has almost 1 million views. This anime shouldn't exist.
Oh, really? That didn't pull up for me. When I looked it up, I found like the actual episodes.
The first thing that comes up is the actual episodes, but then after that, a bunch of rant videos about it. But and these videos are all from like 6 years ago, so I guess that's when it came out, 2014.
Yep, that is when it came out.
I guess I don't really know. Like, I can't imagine this series really had a fan base. It was probably always a niche manga series that fans of horror enjoyed if they read the manga.
Yeah,
and then like they read the manga, they liked that, they want to check out the anime, and they were disappointed.
Yeah, basically, the manga has a fan base. The anime does not have much of a fan base. It has a hatedom, a hate base.
It certainly does.
Which, yeah, like, so my I think take would be it's a little overhated because, like I said, there's a lot of things that people say about this that are not accurate, or like objectively wrong. Like that it's just 48 episodes of the sister eating the brother, 48 minutes, sorry, of the sister eating the brother. It's about 4 minutes or 5 minutes of that, 4 minutes of that, and a lot of other things that also have a lot of problems. People saying it's just like pure shock value. There's nothing here. I do think that there are some thematic elements. There are some visual elements that work. The sound design and the music and stuff is fine. I think the first 4 episodes sort of work as a brief, bite-sized adaptations of the manga intro. I will say the manga artist, who I don't know if that person has done much else, but they draw monsters really well. I've seen the manga artist's monsters, and we're talking like berserk levels of art quality. Now, the way the manga artist draws people is not quite as nice. Could use some work, but the draw monsters really well. The monster in the manga looks a lot cooler and scarier than the monster in the show when we briefly see it. But yeah, the show, I mean, like I said, it's a little overhated, but not much. It's a hot mess.
I mean, it's not good, but it's like I don't know if it's like terrible as they're saying.
Some people have called it like, yes, there are people who have called it like the worst anime of all time. No, I would not agree.
No, there's definitely worse anime out there.
Yeah. It's just kind of a mess. It's a case. I mean, you've got the kind of alienating premise of, the sister eating the brother, and there is like a certain kind of gross subtext to that, which you could use for horror, definitely. There's a lot of horror that uses weird, kind of creepy sexual subtexts for horror, to exploit for horror. I mean, Silent Hill 3 has a lot of undertones that are about teen pregnancy. Haunting Ground, these are all video games, but they were the best examples I could think of. Haunting Ground is a horror game that has a heavy rape subtext. So in this case, we've got like an incest subtext. You can do these like uncomfortable sexual subtexts, and you can use them to make the horror extra disturbing. But a lot of times it seems like Pupa is not really doing that. Instead, it's almost trying to do them as fan service, which a very small niche of people are actually going to appreciate. But other than that, the biggest problem with the show is just that it's cramming so many plot points in that
just a lot of unanswered plot points for sure.
It doesn't have time to properly introduce them. It doesn't have time to properly conclude them. So they're just randomly in there. And it's just like, oh, this is a thing, and we'll never see that again. And at the end, it's like, yeah, it ends up as an almost borderline incoherent mess towards the end of it. It starts off pretty coherent, and then it becomes pretty incoherent. So, yeah, that's my take.
Yeah, I'm definitely glad I watched it. I mean, I normally don't really even really watch a lot of horror anime. I pretty much stick to like shonen stuff or slice of life stuff, like nothing too crazy. I can't say I've ever really watched much horror anime, so this is definitely something different for me.
Yeah. Well, there's a saying, I think, that you can learn more about filmmaking from watching a bad movie than a good movie. And I think that Pupa is really a case of that with like an adaptation. You can learn more from a bad adaptation and kind of dissecting what went wrong than from a good adaptation.
For sure. What not to do.
What not to do. Ooh, and a lot of things went wrong. Mistakes were made. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting to watch and to dissect. So on that level, I think it has some value. Like I said, there are a couple of things it does pretty well, and there certainly are. It is trying to use some themes and subtext and kind of say some interesting things. So I think it has some value. Of course, if anyone is not too grossed out by the whole concept of this weird cannibalism show, you can watch it for free on YouTube right now. So
I'm surprised it's on YouTube and it's not like copyright struck, because it seems like a bunch of anime get taken down on YouTube.
My guess is that because it is so poorly rated and it's a show that is far more hated than liked, my guess is that Studio Dean just kind of was like, whatever, just kind of gave up on trying to profit too much off of this and just left it on, just let it stay.
Hold on one sec. I'm sorry. I gotta mute for 1 sec. I'm sorry. Hold on 1 sec. Okay, sorry about that.
It's okay, I'll cut it out. So
I'm sorry. We've been going probably for like an hour, haven't we?
Yeah, I think we're about done, actually. I think that about sums it up. Do you have any final words?
Not really. I mean, like what other like any other good horror anime to check out then? I mean,
you mean ones that are actually good?
Yeah, I guess some that are actually good. I mean,
well, Paranoia Agent is a one that a lot of people swear by. It's very Paranoia Agent. Have you heard about that one?
No, I haven't. Like I said, I'm mostly just like shonen stuff.
Okay.
Basic bitch anime.
Okay. It is a it is a fun it's a very trippy anime about a group of it follows, so there's a bunch of different people who all have these like secrets or these things that are piling up in their lives that are becoming a disaster, and then they all get a visit from this kind of phantom-esque like boy on roller skates with a baseball bat they call Little Slugger, who just goes around like hitting people and putting them in the hospital. So it's like a very weird plot, but it's very interesting. It's called Paranoia Agents.
Okay. I'll check that one out.
One that not everyone likes, but that I rather enjoy is Higurashi no Nakukoro ni. This is another Studio Dean anime.
Okay.
Animation gets criticized sometimes, but Higurashi is it was based on a visual novel, and it's about, so this boy, like, he moves to this small isolated village out in the country. It's kind of a Hicks from the Sticks place in Japan, and then he starts to learn that there was like this old pagan god they worship there, and there's this case of like a construction worker disappearing, and his new friends start acting weird. So it's like this secret conspiracy sort of anime. and there's a question of with like all the characters, all the he's got like all these female friends, and there's this question of like, oh, who is evil, who is trying to help him, you know? It's just like this question of that. And there's like a big thing about the anime that is kind of weird, that confuses people when they first watch it, but you just kind of get how it works. So I don't want to spoil too much. I'm just going to leave it at that. But Higurashi no Nakukoro ni is a fun one to watch, knowing very little about going in. Let me think here.
And you said you're into like a lot of horror video games too, like Silent Hill, I would assume Resident Evil and those types of things.
Yes. I'm a big Silent Hill fan.
They haven't made a Silent Hill game in a while, right?
Oh no, not since Kojima. Kojima's project, Silent Hill's derailed. So we'll see.
Are they ever going to bring it back? You would think so. I mean,
I think there's been chatter about it, but there's been chatter for like a long time. So we'll see. But I mentioned Haunting Ground. That's an underrated one, I think. It's a little hard to get a hold of. Haunting Ground was almost Clock Tower 4. And I made a video about the Clock Tower series on my channel. If you want to know more about that, you should check that one out. All right. And Fatal Frame. The Fatal Frame games are pretty fun. They're like a Japanese series that feels very Japanese in contrast to Silent Hill, which is a Japanese series that takes a lot of cues from America and set in America. Fatal Frame is about... The whole idea with Fatal Frame is it's about ghosts and hauntings, but the idea is that there was this old Japanese occult researcher who basically made a camera that can exorcise ghosts. Mm-hmm. And the various characters in the different games, they find one of these cameras, and at the same time, they find a place infested with ghosts that's targeting them in different ways, and they have to deal with it. So yeah, Fatal Frame's fun.
Cool. Do you like JRPGs and those kind of games too? Because that's mostly my jam.
A little bit. I played some like the old school Final Fantasies.
All right.
My only problem with JRPGs is that they're such a time sink. And
oh my god,
I'm so strapped for time. So.
Especially the newer ones, they're all like 100+ hours.
Yeah, these days I am so strapped for time, so I can't really do that.
I hear you.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some other good horror anime that I'm also not thinking of that somebody will jump down my throat for that I just can't think of at the moment. But there's a couple to start.
So what's like your main genre of anime that you like to watch?
Oh gosh, my tastes are probably pretty eclectic. I got into it.
You sound like you like everything.
I got into it watching a lot of old '90s shows. So I have a lot of fondness for like the old Tenchi Muyo, Sailor Moon. Yu Yu Hakusho. Nice. I have a lot of
Yu Yu Hakusho is the best, man.
Eras, and sometimes I'll go back, even though it was before my time, to like 80s era stuff. But then like more modern stuff, I do like I said, I do like stuff that has like a little bit of an element more of darkness to it. So like horror shows or mystery shows. What was some stuff I've checked out recently? What was it? There was a show I was watching. I haven't watched it to the end, called The Perfect Outsider, which is an interesting kind of weird show where there's this girl or this young woman who's like, she's been placed under house arrest. She's like a genius, and she's been placed under house arrest for supposedly murdering her parents. Oh gosh, I need to watch that again and finish it this time. But she's basically been placed under house arrest, and then this like university teacher and his assistant and some students like come to see her, and then she escapes, and like all this stuff is happening. Yeah, I like some of the head trippy stuff. Serial Experiments Lane. Do you know Chiaki J. Konaka?
No, I don't.
The creator? Oh, you need to check him out. He's very based. But Chiaki J. Konaka, he made Serial Experiments Lane, which is a legendary anime. Now I'll warn you, first time you watch it through, it's very confusing because he does not hold your hand with that show, and he puts a lot of esoteric stuff, we'll call it, in there. Just a lot. It's very dense. It's got it throws a lot of stuff at you, and it does not explain them. Serial Experiments Lane, though, it's got some very iconic visuals that will stick with you. And it's actually, once you kind of understand the gist of what's going on, it's a very emotional story too. And then he also made The Big O, which is a series. Imagine if Imagine if Bruce Wayne drove a diesel punk mecha and had a robot maid.
The Big O used to be on like Toonami, I think. I remember watching that back in the day. It was on
Big
Adult
O
Swim or
was on
something.
Toonami. Yes, it was. Now, because it's Chiaki
Probably
J.
heavily
Konaka,
edited though.
because it's Chiaki J. Konaka, the Big O is a very head trippy show. And unlike with Serial Experiments Lane, I don't think that's always to the show's benefit. But boy, it has a mood and it has an aesthetic, and the characters are really likable. So there's a lot I really love about the Big O. Even though I would say Serial Experiments Lane is a better anime overall, objectively, I really like a lot of things about the Big O. In fact, I took some cues and some influences from it for my web comic that I'm currently doing. So yeah.
What's your web comic about?
Well, my web comic is called The Last Night of Aelder, and it's a post-apocalyptic diesel punk comic where there's a young mercenary who drives a mecha, and he kind of has this female assistant who just falls in with him. How she ends up with him it's explained in the first chapter. He ends up having to oppose this Orwellian dictatorship that is trying to take over all the humans in the post-apocalyptic world. And it's trying to sort of keep them all drugged up and sort of manage them in a very totalitarian way. So, and he ends up having to fight that group with, what's left of the free humans. So, and like I said,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, like I said, it's diesel punk, so it's very World War I inspired. Actually, calling the Big O diesel punk, I don't think is quite right, because the Big O, has more of an Art Deco aesthetic, which is really interesting. But I definitely took some cues from that show. One of my lead characters starts off as a maid, so you got the maid and the mecha pilot. She's not a robot though, and her character is very different from the robot in that. But then Chiaki J. Konaka also did a few other shows. He did Digimon Tamers, which is like the trippiest.
Oh, dude, oh my God, Digimon Tamers is the best.
You didn't know he did that, huh?
No, I didn't. Oh my God.
That is Chiaki J. Konaka's writing. You were a fan and you did not even know it. Yeah.
I did not even know it, dude. Digimon Tamers easily the best Digimon season. I'm a big Digimon fan, too.
Okay. Well, there you go. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Chiaki J. Konaka is a writer's writer. He's the writer, the type of writer that you don't see much in any of the entertainment industry anymore. But yeah, every time, like he definitely likes to get mind trippy, and sometimes it kind of overwhelms the plot, but he knows how to create a mood. He knows how to write characters, and boy, when he's good, he's really good. So yeah, anything by him practically is worth checking out.
Yeah, man. Because you could definitely tell like the difference in all the Digimon series compared to Tamers, like how dark and edgy that one gets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's his style. He does that. All right. Well, anyway, we better end it now. But thanks.
All right, it was great talking with you, Knowles.
Yeah, thanks so much for collabing with me, Kevin. Maybe we'll do it again sometime in the future.
For sure. You got to give me like some deep cuts to watch. I mean, I'll be checking out all those that you just told me.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
For sure.
All right. Well, everyone, this was our analysis, our review of Pupa. The show Pupa, a show that is widely hated in the anime community. And if you liked this video, be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to see more of my channel, subscribe to my channel. If you want to see more of Kevin's channel, subscribe to his channel. And leave your own comment down below if you have your own thoughts on anything we talked about in this video. It helps us with the algorithm too, so that's great. Yep. Bye-bye, everyone.
All right. Take care.